Corso and Catone.
Well, listen, Mark, hold on. When I say, would you have caffeine today?
What the hell is that up to?
Presented by Special Sauce Podcast, Studio 42 Design, and Corso Law Group. Now for the real deal New England feel, Corso and Catone.
Welcome into Corso and Catone, the real deal New England feel. I'm Corso. Catone is here, just with us in the booth, and you're watching us on YouTube, listening on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you podcast. And hey, listen, give us a call and heated hotline, 855-313-PATS. Want to hear from you? Anything's on the table. Joe's going to pick the one he wants, so let it be yours, 855-313-7287. Hey, you know what, Mark? We're also going to do a mailbag. We want to hear from you. We want to hear from you on the email. So email us if you don't want to call. You want to hear your voice on the radio or TV or any of that.
Some people don't like that.
Email. They don't like that. So corso.catone@gmail.com. Joe, did I get that right?
You did, sir.
corso.catone@gmail.com. So listen, gentlemen, are you guys okay after the Celtics collapse?
Oh my God!
And it was a collapse.
Son of a bitch!
Terrible. I was waiting for Mark. I wanted to see Mark eat his shirt on air.
I know. I was so excited to see that.
I'm always right. The sooner you two realize that, the better off you're gonna be.
Oh, we're going to definitely have to hear from people in our mailbag and heated hotline. Any other way you can get in touch with us with that comment right there. So we're going to get into that in B's and C's. Hey, does Boston need a DNA change? That's the theme of the show today in all four sports. We're going to talk about that. And, of course, Catone's comments. You never want to miss that. And we're going to talk a little Pat's preview with their OTAs going on today and a few little other wrinkles to throw in there. And in Weekly Rewind, again, we're going to compare those four teams and so much more. But let's start with the Celtics. Let's do it in B's and C's. It's probably for the last time. So, Joe, let's have it. So, Mark, they go down 0-3 in the series, okay? Then they battle back and win 3 games in a row. And, you know, 2 of them decisively. Yeah. And then, you know, looking good. Game 6 is where it kind of started in the fourth quarter. And then Game 7 at home getting just throttled by Miami, losing by 20 points. We want to talk about the players. We want to talk about Missoula. We want to talk about this, what needs to happen. But break this thing down, Mark. What happened here?
Chris, it was just so what they did after the first 3 games, game 4 and 5, Chris, they were moving the ball, they were swinging the ball around the court, they were driving, kicking, passing. Defensively, Chris, they were dictating, they were picking up and forcing Miami to start their offense further out. Miami wasn't dictating pace. We were dictating pace on the defensive side of the ball. And then all of a sudden in game 6, it was like, it stopped, and they started chucking up 3-pointers again. Defensively, they had that huge lapse in the fourth quarter, but really, the lapse happened earlier than that on the offensive side of the ball because, Chris, as bad as Miami shot on Saturday, on Game 6, it was Saturday night, right? We should have beat them by 20 in Game 6. Game 6 shouldn't even have been close. Instead, we made it close because of chucking up 3-pointers, and then defensively, we quit in the fourth quarter. But then in Game 7, Chris, what was the game plan? We're just going to shoot threes, and if we hit them, we win. If we don't, we're going to go home, we lose. Like, I don't understand what was the actual game plan in Game 7. Was even a thought of adjusting? I don't know.
I mean, I don't think it's ever the game plan to not play, not playing defense the way they know how, not buzzing around the court, not switching off, getting over screens, getting out the 3-pointers, 3-point shooters, I don't think it's ever the plan to not do that. They just weren't doing it, and they didn't do it at they weren't buzzing around and playing great defense. That swarming defense they love to play, where when they're doing it, nobody can beat them. No one in the league can beat this team when they're doing those kinds of things. So they don't do it in the fourth quarter of Game 6, and it carries over to Game 7. Now, okay, you want to say Jason Tatum went down the first few seconds of the game. He hurt his ankle, and it was a significant injury. I mean, it wasn't like, get up, come on, suck it up. I mean, he did suck it up, okay, but that thing was evidently swelling up. And during the game, Mark and I didn't want to give anybody any excuses for anything. Nothing. He's like, I don't care. I don't give a, what his ankle. Go ahead, suck it up. Bird wouldn't do that. But look, in all honesty, it hampered him. But
Sure it did.
But what happened next was a complete letdown and a complete it's almost like they were just, baffled. Like, they got hit in the face by that issue and nobody else could step up and recover. Right.
Yeah. And Chris, so here's my thing. So he rolls his ankle, and was it the first possession or second possession of the game? First possession. Okay.
Yeah.
So then you start out 0 for 11 from the 3-point line. Okay.
Which was a continuation of the other games.
A continuation of Game 6. So wait a minute now, Chris. Timeout. Call the timeout. Right? Call the timeout. Me personally, I'm telling them, if anyone else takes a 3-pointer, you're on the bench for the rest of the game. I don't want to see another 3-pointer. Drive the paint, move, screen, do whatever. Run a rotation, draw something up. I don't want to see another 3-pointer. You can't shoot 3-pointers. I don't want to see anyone. The next person who takes a 3-pointer on the bench, do something to shake them up, Chris. I don't know. Something. I mean, I get that's kind of like high schoolish, college type of coaching, but shit, right. They what the hell else were you going to do? Like, they weren't hitting anything, Chris.
No. For 2 games, they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. I mean, and it happened in Game 6. Throughout the entire game, they were just the difference is they weren't playing in the fourth quarter through the end of Game 7. We already talked about it. They weren't playing that type of defense they need to play. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, Jason Tatum couldn't guard Butler, given what happened. The most success they had on Butler was when Tatum was on him.
Yes.
And they were going back and forth. And Butler was just shied away from taking shots. Butler looked to dish it off. And look, I don't want to hear anybody talk about playoff Jimmy Butler, because we didn't see him after Game 3. We didn't see, I mean, this is not a guy that lit it up for a game, for the rest of the series. And he didn't do it in Game 7. Yeah, he did little things. He hit the first 3 shots in the fourth quarter. He scored the first, 3 or 4 buckets. They got them going. I get that. But he was a far cry from playoff Jimmy Butler in that Game 7. I mean, he just wasn't. So I don't want to hear about that. The thing to me, though, is I'm with you. Listen, with the 3-pointers. I mean, your percentage sucks. They were, I don't even know what they were. I have it here.
I'm going to say so. Sure. Yep. Go ahead.
I have it. I mean, they I think they were 3 for, I don't even know. 8. It was 8. That's what it was. They were like 8 for 30 or 40, whatever the hell it was. I mean, it was ridiculous, And Jaylen Brown took 23. I'm sorry, took 9 of them, and he was 1 for 9. It was so bad from a shooting standpoint. And like you say, why isn't there something else? And Jason Tatum hit a couple. So when he gets hurt, Mark, why isn't it, okay, this is not a guy that can drive to the basket now because of his ankle. So let's convert him to the 2 and let him sit in the corner waiting for that kick out.
Yeah.
And shoot.
Oh,
3.
yeah. No, absolutely, Chris. Absolutely. And that didn't happen. And that's coaching, Chris. That's a timeout. That's here's what we're going to do to keep Jason involved in this game, because obviously he's not going to be able to play point forward at the top of the key and go to the basket and dish. So we're going to have to get him the ball as a setup, stand-up shooter from a corner or from a wing or from the right. Somewhere the high circle. None of that happened. But isn't that so? we're going to get into coaching in a little bit, but that's coaching. But the other piece of it, Chris, is so if Tatum becomes your 2, who then becomes your 1? Conceivably.
When I say 2, I mean he's playing that off guard now, and you switch Jaylen Brown to the 3.
But who becomes? I understand he's playing off guard. I get that. But who becomes your play? Should become your playmaker? What should Evan go through and funnel through at that point? So I'm going to say he's the 1 because that's what you funnel through.
Yeah, and what Mark's setting up right now is to talk about Jaylen Brown, okay? Because just to give you some numbers.
There we go.
So, because I said it to you, go after game 6, I said, watch. What did I say to you? Watch, right?
Chris said, watch. He said, we did all this and we're going to go home and get beat again. And that's what we did.
So by the way, they were 9 of 42. 9 of 40. They were 21% from 3-point land.
Oh, where's the Rothstein glasses? You're going to talk numbers and stats without the Rothstein glasses?
So they're on. Here they are. Okay. They were 21% from 3-point, 9 of 42. Okay. Meanwhile, the Heat, and this is the other part of this. We'll get to Jaylen Brown in a second. The Heat were 50%. The Heat shot 50% from the field, and they shot 50% from 3-point. Okay. So that's the difference. See, from games 4 through 6, you said this. And Mark, listen, I got to give Mark credit on this because you said it all along. You said, look, I don't know if it's them playing defense or it's the fact that they're missing. He kept saying it throughout the games. They're missing the Heat, meaning wide open shots. They're missing wide open shots. Well, in game 7, they went 50%. So they weren't missing wide open shots anymore.
So in a couple of the games, I would say, Chris, in game 6, more than game 4 and 5. But in game 6, it was like fool's gold. Miami had wide open shots in game 6. They just couldn't hit anything. But technically in game 6, I know everyone's talking about the fourth quarter collapse. But if you watch the entirety of game 6, Chris, you did nothing defensively that stopped Miami. They just missed easy shots at the basket. They missed shots in the paint. Miami, conceivably, if they shot even 40% Saturday night, would have probably beat you by 15 because you shot horrendously from the 3-point line. Defensively, we didn't play good all of game 6, and that's what I kept telling you. I said, Chris, they're not doing anything defensively that's anything. Like, they're just missing shots.
And that's why Spoelstra was not concerned.
No.
He wasn't concerned after game 6 because he knew we're not going to shoot that poorly again. I mean, and that's what he knew to be. And so, because in game 6, Mark, to your point, looking at the percentages, they got it up to, they were 20% from 3-point. And so they were only 35% from the field. So they were 20% worse. I'm sorry, the Heat were 20% worse from the field. I mean, they had a pretty good 3-point percentage in that game, which was that was the fourth quarter.
That was the fourth quarter.
Got back in it in game 6.
That was the
so
fourth
the Heat
quarter.
were 35% versus 50%, and Spoelstra knew that. So the bottom line is they didn't play defense the whole series. Now Jaylen Brown, okay, because you've been waiting. Wait till we get to the show, Joe. He says to me, wait until the show. And he beat himself up. I will give him that. He beat the hell out of himself in the press conference. We'll talk in a second about why.
Don't fall for that.
No, we'll talk in a second as to why we think he was beating himself up. What does he really care about? Here are the 19 points. He's 8 of 23, 1 for 9 from 3-point. He's got 8 turnovers, which is 1 shy of the record. Okay. And he was a plus-minus 17. Garbage. That's garbage. $300 million.
Garbage.
Mark.
Is that a Supermax $300 million player?
I mean, are you kidding me?
Are you kidding me? Really? $300 million?
I mean, what do you make of that? And for all Chris, go ahead.
You know what upset me the most, Chris, out of all of that? Okay, you went through all those offensive stats. I get it. When Jaylen Brown was drafted, his first couple of years, Chris, his calling card was everybody said he was one of the best defenders in the league.
Yeah.
What the hell happened to that part of his game? Even if he wasn't playing well offensively, Chris, The guy who do you know who he was on most of the time in game 7? Do you know who he was on in game 7?
Oh, probably
He was
like
the guy that was trailing Caleb Martin every
Caleb
time
Martin.
he hit a 3-pointer.
Yeah, Caleb Martin, who had Caleb Martin had 26 points. Caleb Martin should not have 26 points in his dreams, let alone in
There's
reality.
a guy, nobody even knew who the hell he was before the Celtics series. Nobody even knew who the hell he was. He probably should have won MVP, not Jimmy Butler. Caleb Martin should have won MVP of the series.
Yeah.
But
And
Jalen
Vincent.
Brown, Chris, was on him a lot of the time that he was hitting those shots. So, okay, you played bad offensively, and that's a whole other issue. But you couldn't even pick it up on the defensive end to try to help your team. It was an utter embarrassment of a game by Jalen Brown. You want to be a super max player. You couldn't shoot. You couldn't dribble. You couldn't rebound. You couldn't play defense. What the hell were you good for? You were good for nothing. And you know what, Chris? I might have put him on the bench and used brought in one of the guys off the bench. Maybe they would have sparked you because he wasn't giving you anything, Chris.
No, he was giving you nothing. And for all his nonsense, for all his BS all season long, or to the second part of the season, where he's talking about, I guess I have to demand the ball more, or, the Udoka thing, or, the city. Oh, that was another one.
Oh, please.
The city's the plus up. The bottom line is all the crap is a mask. Talk about the mask he was wearing. That was an irony, It was all a mask for the fact that, you know what? Maybe he's not what we think he is. Maybe he's not what everybody thinks he is, because he had his moment and he blew it. And a lot of people out there saying he tried, once Tatum went down, he tried to do too much. No, Supermax guys try to do too much. And guess what they do? They accomplish it. They get it done. They don't try to do it. They do it. He's not, Mark. This is not a Supermax guy. He's not a number one. If he went to another team and was their one, they're not going to be much. I'm sorry. I'm not. People say, well, you're taking one game, and no, it's not just one game. I mean, we've seen this dribble off your legs and read the court well at all.
But Chris, here's the thing. So here's where people are conflicted. Okay, because last year against Golden State, he was the best guy on the court, not Jason Tatum. The last 2 or 3 games, he outplayed Tatum, right?
That's because Tatum was so friggin' bad.
No, I understand that, but that's where people get conflicted, because they look at that and they say, "Oh yeah, but look, he was the best player on the court on the Celtics side in that Golden State series." Okay, all right, maybe, okay, but does that mean he's a super max player because he had a good series?
No.
Can I just interject?
Well, but if he was, hang on, Joe. If he was a super max player, he would have got him over the hump in that series.
And Joe, what we mean by a super max player is there's a category for the NBA. So you could be a super max player, a max player, I don't know. They got it broken down into like categories, and within each category, based on the collective bargaining agreement, there's a certain amount of money. There's a span of money that you can be paid within that scale. But if you're a supermax player, that means you can make upwards to $300 million. Now,
right, which you can't get from other
he's
teams.
got now, huh?
Which you can't get from, you cannot get from, you can only get it from the team you're on.
You can only get it from the team you're on. Now, because he's in the year before the last year of his contract, in most cases, when you supermax a guy, a lot of times you do it the year before his last year, because if he hits free agency, nobody else can make him a supermax deal. But once you open him up to the market, he may say, screw you, I'm not staying. But
right.
So if they give him a supermax deal, Chris, because of the way the inflation is and how the salaries raise and and the percentage of increase each year, he would be the highest player in the NBA.
He's definitely not worth that.
Because
Joe, what did you want to say?
Because Chris, the percentage for supermax players has risen this year in the collective bargaining agreement, and he will be the first supermax player under this new scale that it rises every year like inflation. He's not the high. He should not be the highest paid player in the NBA.
No, not especially for the point I was going to make was that in Game 6, you see it right there in evidence at that last minute, last second left. Derek White puts in the pass. Neither one of them, Tatum nor Brown, try to do anything to get open to take a shot. Smart,
Joe, it's great. Not moving with the ball.
He shouldn't have taken. And then Derek White's the only one calling for the actual ball. You know what I mean? And then he puts it in at the end. Miracle.
Another problem, not moving without the ball too is an issue.
So here's the thing, Christo. They did have like 3 guys on Tatum. I will give him.
You're talking about that last play in Game 6.
That last play, I'll give Spoelstra credit.
Strus was playing to deny Tatum.
He was.
He
was. But I will agree with Joe in this sense. There should have been a play set up to get them free.
Right.
And there wasn't.
Right. A double screen, a double pick.
Something. You had to know they were going to overplay him. So how are you going to get on the ball? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, listen, and so I think Bach and I are both on the same page with this, that Jaylen Brown, he's not a Supermax player now. The options aren't too great. They're going to pay him. They're going to give it to him, and he's going to beg for it anyway. He's not going to – look, you say, well, if he gets the free agency, he's going to say, screw you. Listen, that's 50, 60 million or more on the table that you're not going to get. I think they said
it's almost 80 million less.
Less. Yeah. You're not. He's not. He'll do whatever he's got to do to kiss whoever's ass he has to kiss in the city, on the team, for his teammates to get that damn contract. Okay. And I don't know if him in his press conference of how beat up he was. And it's not that we don't like the people. Okay. That's not the issue. But we're here to be real. We're the real deal. We're pissed off. The fans are pissed off. You're pissed off. And so we're pissed off. And so the bottom line is, you're Jaylen Brown. You're upset in your press conference. I get it. Are you upset because you think, did I just blow this thing for myself, for my future? You can't tell me that's not creeping into his head.
Of course it is. Of course it is. When you're that close to getting that kind of money, Chris, it's got to be creeping into his head, right?
There was the golden opportunity. Yeah. There it was.
If he produces in Game 7 and takes you to the finals, they'll put the contract in front of him right in the locker room. No question.
Yeah. Right now. That's it. So
now the debate is, Chris, Felger on the flagship is saying they're not going to offer him a Supermax deal. They're going to offer him like 250, 240, 250 and see if he takes it. They're not going to offer him the $300 million. Now, I don't know if he takes that. I don't know. Does he say no? I can get that on the open market.
I don't think so. I think they're gonna offer him the Supermax. I don't think they're gonna screw around with it. I think they're gonna do, because in their brain, I think that these two guys are the guys, and that they're gonna roll with these two. Because Mark, you can't trade him. You can't trade him because he's only got 1 year left. So somebody who trades for him isn't going to give you much, Chris, because you're only buying him for a year.
When should we have traded him?
We should have traded him last season, like Mark said. I mean, when that whole Durant thing came up.
Durant, even Beal. In the summer, I said, go get Beal. I know Beal was hurt this year. He missed a lot of the year. But conceivably, listen, here's the issue. Chris and I have talked about this ad nauseum during the course of the 7-game series. The reason I would get rid of Trade Brown, and I would even throw Marcus Smart in the deal, because I think Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon, you're fine at that position.
Yeah, you're fine there.
With those guys. Here's my thing. Maybe if you could have you should have gotten rid of Brown and Smart last summer, because here's the thing. Tatum and Brown, for the most part, do a lot of the same things and do a lot of the same things well. Granted, Tatum does it better than Brown. However, they don't complement each other, Chris, right? Jaylen Brown can't create his own shot, go to the basket, penetrate, dish, get other guys involved. There needs to be a guy like a Damian Lillard, a Bradley Beal, one of those type of guys. Kid Murray out in Denver, right? That's the type of guy that would complement Tatum. So if Tatum rolls his ankle in a Game 7, that guy can take control of the game and be the focal point of the offense between passing, distributing, scoring, and maybe he gives you 30 and 50 and 7-8 assists and 4 or 5 rebounds. Tatum don't have that compliment, Chris. And you've said this over and over. The way this team is constructed, they're not going to win a championship with this roster. No.
No.
Probably won't, because you don't have enough money to bring in another guy that's going to really complement Tatum that's good enough to take you to the promised land.
Yeah, and the other thing too is if you are going to keep Brown, you got to figure out a way to have these guys work off each other. So one of them's not just standing off to the side while the other one's trying to play one-on-one. You can run pick and roll with each of them. And that's a coaching thing. So let's talk about Mazzulla right now, because there's if I put a pie chart up, and I saw a lot of that this week, I'm putting most of it on Tatum and Brown, and I'm putting it on Tatum too because of what happened earlier in the series with him. Okay. Yeah. So I put it on Tatum, I put it on Brown, then I put it on Mazzulla. Some of it's on Brad Stevens. I don't put it on so much the role guys, but talking about Mazzulla now, does this happen with Udoka? Why aren't they playing? Talk about the defense. Talk about the three-point philosophy. What is the situation with this guy?
So,
they give him an out saying, oh, well, he didn't have his guys, his coaching people. He didn't have guys with him that were his guys.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Chris, that's what they're saying, right? They're trying to give him an out, and they're trying to insinuate that whole three-point philosophy of those leftover guys from Udoka, that's their philosophy, the three-point line, shooting three-pointers. Now, here's what's funny, Chris. When Joe Mazzulla played high school basketball, he played locally at Hendricken. His game was hard nose, tenacity, defense. He was a guard who dished, drove to the basket, looked for fouls, went to the foul line. He went to college. He went to West Virginia. He played for Bob Huggins when Huggins coached at West Virginia. Huggins, Chris, is noted for defense and defensive tenacity. That's the game Mazzulla played. So I don't understand how in the NBA that's not his DNA. We're talking about time for a DNA change in Boston, but that's Mazzulla's DNA is defense. So I have no idea what he did this year with this roster and his team.
He said he said it after the game. Why'd you lose? 21% from three-pointer. Oh, no, that's not. This would never have happened with Udoka, ever. No. This would not have happened. No. Which is why Mark and I both thought it was a mistake to completely cut him loose. Suspend him, whatever. Bring him back, though, because then you at least have some hope.
Listen, you could have suspended him for the year like the Red Sox did with Cora, and now at the end of the year, thank you, Joe. You did a good job filling in, and now Udoka's back next year after he serves his year suspension. But I think part of it was Udoka didn't want to come back here because the Celtics made this public, Chris. They had the press conference, like none of that needed to happen. They could have just said, listen, it's an internal thing. He broke a team rule. He's suspended for the year and be done with it. And then you could have brought him back next year. That's it.
Right. So again, we'll see what happens with Mazzulla. He's going to be back. I mean, they're not going to get rid of him. That's not going to happen.
But Chris, let me ask you a question. Does coaching matter in this league?
Yeah.
Does coaching matter? So the Celtics talented enough
that's
that
why
it
I don't
matter
put the
who
whole
the coach was.
I mean, listen, if it didn't matter at all, if it mattered a ton, then he'd have the biggest pie chart. He'd have the biggest fault out of this whole season. Would Mazzulla have? Okay, if it mattered that much. No, I don't think it matters that much, but you can't deny the fact that he got schooled by Smolstrom. He got schooled somewhat by Doc, but his players quit. Steve Kerr, that was the year before. It matters some adjustments, especially when you got guys that don't have dog in them. So. Is he back?
So people, and I heard a few things, Chris, about, well, it wasn't Mazzulla's fault. They did things and the players weren't reacting. Listen, if you lose a basketball game, John Wooden, from the great coach of UCLA, used to say after when a coach loses a game, he used to say, either you're not coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. And either way, right, it's on you as the coach. You're either not coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. That on the other side of the ball, that's why you lost. And it's it's on you. You're the coach of this team. So don't put it on the players. Don't play with it. It's on you. And that was something that Wooden always used to say whenever he lost or somebody lost. And he's right. He was a legendary coach. Mazzulla, Chris, it was almost like it was very nonchalant, like, yeah, we just didn't hit our shots. No, there's a hell of a lot more why you lost Game 7. It's not just, yeah, I understand you didn't hit your shots, but Jesus, do you really understand what happened out there?
Well, we're going to see what happens in the coming weeks. We're going to see who goes, who stays, what the coach's situation is going to be like. DNA change is needed here, Mark. They need some dog, and we'll see what happens. So, Season C was presented by Special Sauce Podcast. What's your special sauce? SpecialSaucePodcast.com. Hey, when we come back, he's already in full voice. Buckle up. Catone's comments is next.
Special Sauce Podcast. You liking the song? The sauce is good, man.
Easy start up, finance, train them, trust them, and let them lead.
With your host, Marcus Aurelius. Tune in to Special Sauce Podcast, wherever you podcast. What's your special sauce? Time for Catone's comments!
So, listen, this week, I came to the realization that, you know what? I might be getting old. Maybe it's me. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old. I tell all these stories about me. I tell all these, what? I tell all these stories.
I said might.
Listen, Joe, fix his computer for crying out loud. It's like he's in outer space. So, I tell stories about, experiences I have doing different things and things that aggravate me. So this week, again, yes, I went to a store against all advice from Joe and Chris. I went to a store. Now listen, I go to a store, and the only reason I went is because my daughter, she's graduating, but she had to print some stuff out for her senior. I don't know. She had something she had to turn in to get tickets for graduation and some other things. So she had to print something. She's out of ink with the printer in the house. So I have to go to a store to buy it. Okay. So I go to the store. I buy some copy. Get some copy paper. I get some ink for the copier. No problem. So I get in line, check out. No problem. There's a young girl behind the register. I don't know if she's in training, whatever. So I go to check out, and I'm standing there, and there's this box of Crayola crayons. Remember the old Crayola crayons? Like, there's a box, this big box. It looked like 50, 60 crayons, whatever. There's a box there next to her. So I said, I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, wow, what's that? Crayola crayons. I don't know, whatever, right? So now she says to me as I'm checking out, oh, do you want to donate to school supplies for underprivileged kids? And I said, well, yeah, I guess. All right, I'll donate, whatever. So now I figure, you know what, I'll donate, but I think I'll be nice. So I said to the girl, I said, ooh, the Crayola crayons. I said, I remember when they used to sell a box of 64 Crayola crayons, and they had the pencil sharpener in the back. I don't seem to see the crayon sharpener in the back. You could sharpen your crayons, remember, when we were kids? So she's looking at me like I'm from outer space. Like, just looking at me like I'm from another planet. And I said, oh, Jesus Christ, I'm just trying to make conversation, right? So I turned to the guy next to me. The guy next to me is older than me. He's going to be 60, 70, I don't know, 80. I don't know what he was. So I said, you don't remember the pencils, the sharpener for the crayons and the boxes of Crayola? And he grunts. He goes, ugh. He grunts at me. I said, what the hell is wrong with this guy? I'm really trying to be nice. Right? See, that's a thanks I get for trying to be nice. So I check out, I leave, I come home. So I'm telling my wife, I said, I was only trying to be sociable. I'm telling about the crayon box. She said, Ma, they probably haven't had those in the crayon boxes in God knows how long. Like, when's the last time you bought a box of Crayola crayons? Your kids one's in college, one's graduating high school. I said, I don't know. So now I take the cartridge to print to put in the printer. Well, that's a whole nother fiasco. A whole nother fiasco. You gotta take out the old cartridge. You gotta hit this lever, reset this, push this button. Listen, I'm too old for that. I just want to snap it in, close the top, hit and then it prints. It prints very simple. I don't have the patience. I can't go through all this stuff. Bang, do. You need like 8 steps to put a cartridge. And so my wife said, Mark, it's very simple. Go, boop, boop, boop. I said, listen, she's the same age as me. I said, something's gotta be. I'm getting old. I'm getting old. I have no more patience. No more patience. But the Crayola crayon box put me over the edge. And the guy behind me was older than me, and he grunted at me. So I think I'm just getting old, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's me. I don't know.
Okay, so much to unwrap there, Joe.
You don't remember the Crayola crayon boxes with the sharpener?
Stop with the Crayola box for a minute. We please. First of all, I will say this: who the hell? I mean, is that not an indictment on the school system if they're still using friggin' crayons?
Well, I don't know. Listen. I don't know what the crayon box was there for. I assumed it was to advertise for school supplies. I have no friggin' idea.
So they must have found that in the basement somewhere.
Yeah. All I know is when I checked out, that's what the girl told me. So
that's for people
donated.
like you. That's for
but
people like
maybe
you.
It was just a coincidence. The crayon box was there. I didn't even know they still made them.
Yeah. Stop calling me T-Rex, okay? Stop. You must feel like you're looking in the friggin' mirror because, first of all, you're not getting old. You look, here's the difference. My grandfather says age is a number, okay?
Yeah.
So the number means nothing. It doesn't matter. You might as well be 90. That's who you are. You're just fundamentally old. That's it. And you've been that way for the last 20 years. So I don't know what you're talking about getting there. But Mark, first of all, with the ink cartridge, okay? Well, the guy's grunting behind you. That should be right there. That should be your message. Joe, why does he keep leaving the house?
I don't know. He did lead in with that. I give you that.
I let in with it, Joe.
He didn't take our advice and went to the store anyway.
Listen.
Well, but Mark, you put the ink cartridge in. You understand it's got all kinds of like moron-proof things. You know, it's got like green levers and tabs that you tap and the thing pops up.
Yeah, I can't. I don't care. I just want to snap it in, Chris.
I'm with Mark on that one. Snap it in. They make these things ridiculously impossible to work. I have 6 different printers over here, all brand new. The ink cartridge can't go in. I'm done with it.
Joe,
Joe's a dinosaur.
Come on the screen for a minute. Come on the screen. Let's take a look at you for a minute, okay? When you see Joe, okay, he looks all, in style, and he's the now. He's the here and now, okay? But like internally, fundamentally, like you, he's 1,000 years old. Like you and Joe, I'll never understand it. Why are you going to stores? They have places that deliver things in a day, one day. There's nothing you need out there. Anybody out there.
Well, there is because she had to print it that day, Chris. Chris, she had to print it that day. I couldn't wait a day to get the ink cartridge.
I just like to get out there and be social, but I also think that I want to look at the thing, I want to look at the item, see it, because every time I order something online, it comes and I'm like, yeah, that's not what I wanted, not at all. Little piece of plastic breaks in a day. You get it. Yeah, you need to be social.
He wants to be social.
Joe, listen. I only go to these places because my wife forces me to. I ain't going to be social. I tried to be social. A guy grunted at me. That's my last attempt at ever trying to be social.
Guy have no desire to be social with anybody. This is as social as you're going to get from me. I don't want to be social. People don't like me. I'm an extremely unlikable person. I hear that. And therefore, I don't burden people out there with likable qualities. So I just stay home and order so somebody shows up. I don't even talk to the person that shows up at the door to drop it. Just drop it. Leave it there. I don't, go away. Mark, stay out of the stores.
Well, the good thing about Amazon, Chris, is you don't have to speak to anybody. Right? That's the only good thing.
Right.
They
That's
just
my
drop it at your door.
point. And you could do it. You could do it in 30 seconds too on the phone. Boom, boom, boom. There it is. All done. End of story. Make it real easy. That's why Amazon, I think they have a hub right down the from me that they bring the stuff there just to deliver to my house because it shows up every day, 3 times a day. Is an Amazon thing coming.
Joe, I'm just going to say this before we end Catone's comments. I'm just going to say this. He's calling me old. He's calling me a dinosaur. Ask him.
You called yourself old.
Listen, ask him when the last time he's watched a show at night that's not from 1968, 69. He don't watch anything that wasn't made in the 70s or 60s, Joe.
You see, that's what I mean about being
I was watching the Dean. I was watching the Dean Martin celebrity roast the other night. I was watching the Dean Martin celebrity roast. Love it. Those are fantastic. Mark, good stuff. Yeah. Oh, stay out of the stores, Mark. Please do everyone in the world a favor and just stay out of the stores. So, Catone's comments was presented by Corso Law Group, Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law, CorsoLawGroup.com. Allow us to be your voice. Hey, when we come back, go to talk a little Patriots, Pat's preview, all that and more right after this.
It's that time again for a timeout for a message from one of our sponsors. No one ever thinks they will be in the need of a criminal or traffic lawyer, but things happen. Corso Law Group is Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Their 20-plus years experience and attention to detail has helped thousands of people all across this great country who found themselves in a situation in Arizona. So whether it's a traffic ticket or if you need reduced DUI or more serious issues, call or go online to CorsoLawGroup.com and talk with these expert attorneys who I know will help you. Corso Law Group.
Back in with more Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. Mark, Joe, there's a little, this past weekend, I got to tell you this. I had my sister over, she has little kids. So I put out like one of those nets in the backyard for the badminton, a little birdie, those little things. It got stuck in the tree. Okay. So I'm staring at this thing throughout for days now. And I thought, the wind will knock that thing out of the tree. It's driving me nuts that this thing's sitting in that tree and it won't come out. This is what I'm doing.
This is what he deals with, folks at home. They have pills for that too.
So, but anyway, let's talk Patriots, Joe. Pat's preview. Let's have it. So, Mark, they had some OTAs today. It was open to the public or to the press for the first time today, right? We talked about it last week. They got 2 of them canceled because Joe Judge reared his ugly head again in the mix, and it seems to me that he's settled into the special teams role over there because that's what he was working with today a lot.
Yeah,
was the special teams, which is fine. Stay over there. Stop doing anything that you're in charge of. And I want to talk about DeAndre Hopkins too, but what are your takeaways from these OTAs so far? I know what he's going to say though.
Well, no, a couple of things. First of all, Chris, I think it was pretty poignant that they made it a point to say today that Billy O'Brien was in charge. There was nobody with him. There was nobody over there doing Belichick wasn't there. It was his baby. He was shouting out things. He was controlling the offensive side of the ball, which I think is a good sign, Chris, because everybody trusts him. And the other thing that came up that I thought was good was that it became evident that he's bringing in elements of what he did at Alabama. And Alabama, Chris, spread the field out. There was motion. So that offense in Alabama is more of an up-to-date offense than the New England has been running. So that, I think, is definitely a positive. And listen, I know I'm going to say it because I got to say it just for Chris. And I understand, Chris, they're in shorts and T-shirts. I'm already
shaking my
comment.
head. For those of you on the radio, I'm shaking my head right now.
I'm going to preface this by saying they were in shorts and T-shirts because I know that's how he's going to respond to me. Okay, so I'm just anticipating his response. Tyquan Thornton was lighting the field up today, lighting up the field. Listen to me now. I said to Chris, I think the kid has a shot to be good, really good. I said that. I said that last year. He told me he's 80 pounds. He's going to break a bone as soon as he gets hit. And Chris was right. I'm going to give Chris credit. He broke a bone as soon as he got hit. But I'm hoping maybe O'Brien can figure out a way to get this kid in space and free. Because if you can, Chris, obviously he has speed if you can get him in space. And I don't know if he's durable enough or strong enough to be able to do that.
On a flag football team. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Which is pretty much what they were in today. Okay. They don't even have people running after them to grab the flags today. Look, I know what you're saying. The word that was used today, and I don't think you're using this word, but the word that was used to describe him today was phenomenal. This was Evan Lazar who said he looked
I didn't use
phenomenal.
that. Chris, I didn't use that word. I didn't use that word.
Phenomenal. You remember the last time I heard that in OTAs? Was they were talking about Harry. They were talking about N'Keal Harry, how he looked, so good in the shorts and T-shirt. Yeah, that worked out really well. And shut up, don't even say it. But here's the thing. I hope you're right, but he still needs to gain. I didn't see any. The thing I was looking for was what does he weigh? What's his weight? What's his strength?
Chris, there was no reference to he looks bigger, stronger. There was no reference to that, which means he looks the same. Chris,
right.
Two things that did concern me. Schmidt-Schuster wasn't there. So was he injured already? I don't know. He wasn't there. And everyone's saying he's going to be a big contributor. The number one corner, Gonzalez wasn't there. I don't know if that means anything. I don't know.
I think Gonzalez is probably studying. He's probably more in doing that sort of being on the field OTAs. But Mac was very happy though. He seemed a little energetic. He seemed like, hey, everyone's on the same page. Everyone's now, and you could see the shots he's taking. I mean, everyone's on the same page now. I mean, does that move the needle for you in our wins and losses? I don't want to go through them all, but does that kind of hearing him like this and knowing that Billy O is really controlling things? I mean, we knew he would.
Chris, the only thing that's going to move the needle is
for you?
Well, Chris, I still don't know what they got in the receiver room. Schmidt-Schuster's not there. Thornton's going to make a big leap forward. The 6th-round pick, Butte, was limited today in OTAs, which I thought he would because he had that ankle injury last year. I think that they're going to bring him. They're not going to overwork him in shorts and T-shirts. But I think he'll be ready to go for training camp. And there was, and the kid, the rookie from Liberty. I still think, Chris, you need somebody to pop. One of those guys to pop. I know O'Brien's going to be an upgrade, but does it move the needle on wins? Not unless one of those guys pops. And is something we didn't think was happening. Maybe they were a number one receiver. I don't know.
So speaking of people that may move, that may pop or be high, perhaps, and I want to talk about. I want to do a caller last week about why we can stick by our 4-6 and 3-7 record at the break. Talking a breakdown of the AFC East teams. We could do that next week. Because. Talk to me about Hopkins. Can they get him? Because he's on their list of teams. But what are they going to have to do to get him?
So, Chris, I don't think they're really on his list of teams. I think that I don't know who's producing that. I think that's Belichick's people trying to make it like, because if you look over the last few years, Chris, anytime anybody good's released, the Patriots are always on their list, and we never get them. Listen, he's going to end up right now. He's asking for a salary that's a little too high for Buffalo and Kansas City.
Yeah.
He's going to end up on either Kansas City, Buffalo, Dallas, or Cleveland. One of those 4 teams. Everyone's saying, Baltimore. He's not going to Baltimore. Baltimore doesn't have the money to spend for him. Baltimore's got enough in the receiving room now. I don't think they're going to waste the money on DeAndre Hopkins. He's going to end up either in one of those 4 teams, Chris. Cleveland, Dallas, Kansas City, or Buffalo. And odds are it's going to be Kansas City or Buffalo, right? New England's not even in the conversation.
If he's willing to Yeah, I mean, if he's willing to do a team deal, at least for the first year, and then backload your money or something like that, then he'll end up in one of those two places because that's where he wants
Yeah.
to go. And I would say
That's where he
Kansas
wants
City.
to go.
If he wants, I think a middle of the road team that can pay some and provide you some hope is Dallas. So I think there's a good shot that he ends up there. New England's going to have to overpay to get him. That's it.
Yeah.
They're going to
they're
have
not
to.
gonna
That's who
overpay,
you are
Chris.
now, New England. That's who you are, Patriots. No.
And Chris
But
Kraft,
that's what they're going to
Kraft
have
is
to
not
do to
going
get a guy
overpay.
like that.
Chris Kraft's not overpaying.
But is he an immediate? Yeah, no, that's never going to happen. But is he an immediate? Is he immediate? Yeah. Yeah, I know everybody talks about the issues, the PED thing, and he's only played a certain amount of games, and his play has fallen off, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so, and we got 30 seconds, Mark. What's the on that?
Well,
I mean,
because Chris, the thing is, when guys start at his age, when guys the PEDs, when guys start to fall off like that, Chris, at the receiver position, everyone thinks that it's the cliff. You're done.
Let him take it.
No. But I'm saying when you start to fail like that at the receiver position, it's a quick. You're done. You're finished. But I think he could help us, Chris. Just to end this, I think he absolutely is an upgrade if you can get him in your room.
Well, anybody out there who thinks that's going to happen, they're the same people that think they're going to win 10, 11 games this year. So
yeah. Oh, you're going to upset your caller. You're going to upset your caller from last week.
Well, let's hear for some people in Heated Hotline and in our emails, our mailbag. So Pat's preview was presented by Special Sauce Podcast. What's your special sauce? SpecialSaucePodcast.com. Hey, when we come back, we're going to do a little weekly rewind, compare some teams, all that and more coming up.
It's the Special Sauce Podcast. You like this song? This sauce is good.
Easy start up, finance, train them, trust them, and let them lead.
With your host, Margaret Arias.
Back in with more Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. Hey, listen, let's get into some weekly rewind. We haven't seen it in a while. Joe, let's have that wash. Going back through the week, about a weekly rewind. So, Mark, this show is, does Boston, DNA changes needed in Boston, right? And when you look at across the board at all these teams, okay, all of them, Red Sox, Patriots, Bruins, Celtics, and especially the Bruins and the Celtics, they seem to have a similar problem. They ran out their coaches that they had some success with that could really, bring their teams to where they needed to go. They added talent. The front offices did. I get it. Steven should have brought more in at the break. I got that. But talent-wise, they're there. Patriots are similar. Red Sox similar. I mean, is an entire DNA change needed? And what do we mean by that?
So in Boston, Chris, this in regards to the Celtics and the Bruins, they both ran off their coaches, right?
Yeah.
Udoka, they didn't bring him back. And Cassidy. Well, Cassidy's in the finals, Stanley Cup finals. And I hope Vegas wins it. I hope Vegas wins it. Just because of the lad to the whole, the whole debate, right? But listen, here's the thing, Chris. So the Celtics, arguably, if you look at their roster, top to bottom, has the most talented team in the NBA. They can't win. Why is that? Okay. The Bruins had the most, I don't want to say the most talented. Well, I guess you could say the most talented team, Chris, if you want to go by wins and losses. They broke the NHL record for points. So they were the best team. I won't say the most talented. They were the best team in hockey this year. And you lost the first game, the first round of the playoffs. The Red Sox are a big market team acting like a small market team. You and I predicted before the season started they'd probably be about an 82, 83 win team. That's probably what they're going to be. They're a 500 team right now, right? A game over 500. They're going to end up with between 82 and 85 wins. And we predicted that, Chris. We did, right? Yep. And you're predicting the Patriots with what, 6 wins? 5, 6 wins? So
6, 7.
when we say a DNA change, Chris, are we talking about a management DNA change? Like, in other words, their philosophy of spending money and bringing in players, and because when you talk about the Bruins, they kind of did that. When you talk about the Celtics, they have spent some money. They got players. When you say DNA change, what are you thinking, Chris? There's definitely something wrong.
Yeah, I mean, management extends to the coach. So you're talking about the Bruins. Cassidy, to me, Cassidy's a big difference. If you talk about the coach, Udoka's a big difference. If you talk about player personnel and management of cap and not money and draft and all of that, Belichick's an issue. You talk about, you talk about management, bringing a guy like Bloom on to be something you're not. That's an issue. So, I mean, to me, the DNA change needs to take place in management, whether it be coaching or in the actual front office.
Okay.
But when it comes to play, see, the reason why it's hard for me to say it's a player issue, because we talk about the Celtics, we talk about Jason Tatum and saying he's not a dog, right?
Yep.
Well, you could say the same kind of thing in their attitudes, like Mac Jones is kind of similar, right? Some Pasternak, he's kind of similar. I just think there are these guys that are dying off in the leagues that were dogs in the sense that we know it to be. The Currys, the LeBrons, these kind of guys, like that. And they're going away, and what they're being replaced with is touchy-feely, sensitivity.
And they don't want to be friends with each other, Chris. It's all about image. Right. They don't want to be friends with each other.
So when we talk about a DNA change, is it even possible anymore with players?
So you and I, Chris, at the end of the game 7, we talked about mental toughness in dogs. And we listed like 5-6 guys. 7 guys, and then we were like, who else is there left in the NBA? And the guys we mentioned were all the guys that were old guys.
Yeah.
LeBron. We talked about Curry.
Guys all in their 30s.
We also threw, but we did throw in, we threw in Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's in his 30s. Because listen, I know you wanted to say about playoff Jimmy Butler, but listen, Chris, his attitude and demeanor drove that team, Chris. Even if he didn't score 50
I get that.
points.
But I was talking about the on the court.
That's something. But listen, that's something Tatum and Brown don't bring to the table, Chris. I'm sorry.
They don't.
They don't bring that to the table. He's a dog in that sense, and they are not. In that sense.
Look around the league. Does anybody else? Does Booker bring that?
Does Giannis even bring it? Think about it, though. Does Giannis bring that? I don't know.
Float on that. That's one of those floaters. Jokic, this is a guy that he's a throwback.
Jokic's a throwback. I think he's a dog. Let's see what he does in this series. I think
they're going to dismantle that team, by the way. They're going to dismantle the Heat. They're not even the Heat. You're going to be wondering, whoa, the hell? How did they beat the Celtics? Are going to look so much worse at the end of that series, right? But no, Mark, I'm with you. The DNA.
So, Chris, the DNA change, then we agree is probably you think is in the coaching and in management. That's where the DNA change has to happen because the players are the players. This is a new generation of guys, and this is what you're going to be dealing with going forward. But it's in Boston. There's a management, whether it be ground level at the coaching level or general manager, president level, there needs to be a management change somewhere in each organization. So when you say DNA, right? And I would agree with that, Chris. I would agree with that.
So DNA change is needed in Boston across the board. We want to hear from you. Write us, email us, call us. Let us know what you think of that. Next week, we'll get a little deeper into that. Corso and Catone was presented by Corso Law Group, Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Get on, listen to all our shows. They're up for you to watch, listen to, and come back next week, 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have more fallout from the Celtics. Some talk, on OTAs still with the Patriots. Catone's comments, Yankees, Red Sox, anything you bring to the table, we will be ready for it. We are Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. See you next Saturday.
Find Corso and Catone on iHeartRadio, iTunes, or wherever you podcast. And subscribe to the YouTube channel, Corso and Catone, and catch the chaos at 7 p.m. on Saturday.